Hi, I'm Janet. I'm here in beautiful Wagner Park with Patrick Bamburak, and we're going to talk about music. So, Patrick, thanks for being here.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, tell me a little bit about your musical journey.
Well, music's been a lifelong journey for me. It started very young. I come from a musical family, and so it's always just something that was in my life. It was around the house as I was a kid growing up. I luckily had always had access to instruments. We owned a piano in the house, a large Hammond organ, which I still have to this day, and started guitar very young too. So it was always something where I don't think I ever envisioned a future for myself where I wasn't going to be a musician.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was again a lifelong pursuit, and I think just so deep into my DNA that no matter what else I've done, I think music has always been the foundation for anything else I've done.
So, did your family encourage you by having a band, or how did you wind up breaking out on your own?
So I took a lot of when I was taking music lessons. I studied piano. I formally studied guitar at a young age. I took lessons in percussion and drumming. Played saxophone and clarinet for a while. So I went through that period.
Everything.
Yeah. I went through a period of with the instruction comes that sort of the cycle of, you have the lessons, you have the recitals, and became through the encouragement of my family too to support me through by getting all these lessons. I was performing a lot early on, doing those recitals, and then next thing you know, in school, if we were doing the school play and they needed the piano player, it was Patrick. So I was very. I joke sometimes that I did my first 500 shows before I was 10. But that foundation for me too of the comfort level, I guess, of performing as a child, and knowing that you're doing the music because it's something that you love to do and it's a part of who you are. So the pressure of the stage, maybe because I jumped at it so early, it was a little bit. I overcame the obstacle before I knew how big it could be.
So, in terms of the songs you write, is there like a passion to get a message out in your writing, or is it fun? Everybody has their own inspiration.
Right.
Something
That's a great question, because I try to make a point. I've written a lot for myself, my own records, and I've written a lot for other artists.
Oh.
And so there'll be times where the job at hand is I'm writing a song for me that I'm very passionate about, and I have a message. I have something I want to say. And there's other times where I may be writing a song for another artist where I'm making sure I incorporate a message, even if the song has a different feel to it. It might be more commercial pop or something like that, but to try to say something, and not just have words chained together just for the sake of having something rhyme in a meaningless string of words.
Patrick, what's the difference between performing in a listening room where everyone's appreciating the music and listening compared to a venue like a bar?
Yeah, there's a big difference. The listening room experience, you have that sense of the support of this audience, their attention, right? That they're there to discover your music, just like I'm there to share it, and that they want to hear, they're interested in what I have to say as a songwriter. So one of the things that happens in the shows, whether it's the bars or the clubs, you're in many ways in those places, you're making your impact on the audience with how loud your amp is turned up, how crazy or bright your lights are, and these things of overkill to try and take the attention of that audience member away from their beer to you up on the stage, and in the listening room environment, you're accomplishing that with your song, with your music, with your words. I think I, as a performer, I gain as much inspiration from performing in a venue like that as I hope the listener and the audience gets from seeing me. So I leave that stage motivated and filled with more ideas in terms of what do I want to bring to these people again, because that audience, they really want to discover something, and they want to hear what I have to say. So it is there's no comparison between the two, and it's my preference is to I spent many years on stages again with the amp turned up to 10, and I still love to do that. But if someone was to say to me, do you want to play an acoustic gig and perform your songs to this attentive audience, or jump around on the stage again in front of 500 drunk people, I will be on the listening
that
room
might be
stage.
fun once in a while.
Once in a while, it's okay.
It's always good to
Yeah.
hear your words
Yeah.
and melodies.
Yeah.
I'm here with Mary Ann Conway.
Thank you for having me, Janet.
Thank you for being here. We're going to talk a little bit about music. What motivated you to be a songwriter?
Well, I remember when I was 10 years old and I wanted to learn to play the guitar. So I started playing my brother's guitar, and then I started playing in mass. The folk mass was just beginning, and I just loved playing my guitar. And all of a sudden, I started writing lyrics, and I got my little Sony cassette tape recorder, and I was always out in my backyard shed all by myself, and I just started writing. And I don't know where it came from, but it's something now that I still do. I took a break for a little bit because my mom told me not to do it. So instead of encouragement, and I got more discouragement and forbidden because it wasn't something that was really seen as, songwriting wasn't seen as something that you could do to make a living or anything like that. It was only for a very few people. But
Was there a lot of music in your family? Did they listen to music a lot?
yeah, they loved
They did.
music. My dad danced to all the big band music. I grew up listening to WNEW AM in New York before I started listening to WNEW FM. And there was music played in our household, but it was something that probably wasn't seen as a viable career for anybody. And so I wasn't encouraged in it, although I ended up working in radio and working with the Nashville Network and various radio stations as well. But I loved music. It was the most important thing in my life. And I listened to Poco. That was a country rock sensation back in the early 70s when I started listening to it, and Buffalo Springfield. And I started writing. And I still do it now. And it's something I can't not do. It is something that just comes through me. Sometimes I do co-writes, but mostly I write by myself, and I love it.
Mary Ann, tell us the difference between what goes on in Nashville and what goes on in the local music scene.
Sure. This is the Asbury Park area at the Jersey Shore, and of course everybody knows about the legendary Stone Pony and Bruce Springsteen. But the music scene here in Asbury Park has been vibrant for decades, and it is experiencing another resurgence now. There are a lot of places here in Asbury Park where songwriters can play their original music, and of course there's a lot of cover opportunities for cover bands and all that. But down in Nashville, of course has been since 1925, and the origination of the Grand Ole Opry and WSM. Songwriters have been going to Nashville from other parts of the country, other parts of the world for decades. And now there's a resurgence in Nashville as a town. So as the music industry changes, so does Nashville. And Music Row, what was once just houses and houses and houses of publishing companies, those are now being torn down. And there's hotels going up in the area instead because it is becoming more of a tourist destination. There's sports venues there that people are going to see, as well as the music, the honky-tonks that are on Broadway. So many people are now moving to Nashville, and so that the competition for songwriters, for performers, it's becoming quite steep, and and young songwriters is what they're looking for. They're looking for young people, And so then the older generations, they're either being pushed out or, just it's more difficult for an older mid-range age person.
Marianne, we know a lot of songwriters that go to Nashville. What exactly do they do when they go? Is there a certain schedule that they are on? What is it like?
Well, everybody will be a little bit different depending on their notoriety and what music they've written and what they've had published, of course. So if they're just starting out, they might go down there and sign up for some open mics. There's many venues that are opening up, of course, on Broadway. Mostly that is cover music that's played in the honky tonks. But then there's many other venues that they could try to get some time and sign up for an open mic or a slot where they could play and get their music out there.
Are there people in the clubs looking for new talent more so than everywhere else?
I think back in the old days,
Right.
that was more true than it is now. I don't really think that there's a talent scout sitting in every venue, but there might be somebody there wanting to see how somebody looks on stage, and that's certainly possible.
And what do you think the trend is in Nashville right now of who is getting picked up or getting more attention?
Well, I think the younger acts are absolutely getting more attention. There's a lot of change in the sound of country and what's being defined as country. There's a lot of rock and roll riffs that are now in country music that never was. It's very pop sounding. A lot of the more popular country music, but of course there's still bluegrass sounding country music, more traditional country music being played as well. I think the genre has opened up.